Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Myths and Stories, a Destiny 2 lore podcast. And we are continuing and concluding our studies on the Nine. This will be part 3 of what is appearing to be a trilogy discussing the Nine. Last episode, we had talked about the transition of the Guardian Orin into the emissary of the Nine, her and the Nine's interactions with the Drifter and the importance there. And then we left it off with the beginning of another lore book talking about a inquisitive Cryptarch by the name of Lavinia, who had some questions for Zur and didn't really get answers.
I mean, at least she didn't break him
This
like
is
the last
true.
interaction he had.
Yep, he didn't end up with more broken bones.
That's a positive, I
Yeah,
guess.
I mean, for sure, he's walking away pretty good there.
That's true.
But so yeah, we left off with this Lavinia Cryptarch investigating the Nine via their agent Zur, and we are going to continue with her as we go through her investigation tonight and kind of learn alongside her, confirm as well some things that we had talked about in our very first episode as to the natures of the Nine. And yeah, we'll have a good time as we get to the end of our trilogy here.
Yay! Best trilogies are always in threes, right?
Historically, yes, that is accurate.
that was the longest pause in the history of pauses. He did. Myth does not appreciate my dad joke, so I will refrain for now.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that we've been covering the Nine. Like I've actually learned more about Orin the Guardian and Nasa the pre-Guardian person. Like I knew she was an Awoken. I knew she'd been, but like you don't. It's funny, like you don't think of things like that. Like the Awoken have such a large history, and you don't think of just like, oh, Joe Blow Awoken over there had to go through all of that. They were on the Exta screen. They went through the distributary. They lived through the Theodicy Wars. I mean, like an Awoken today, an Awoken Guardian today has lived through so much and has had so much happen to them, and they only remember the last like 7 years. Like that's just crazy to think of. And now, but I mean, obviously now, like you have Awoken like Crow or the Emissary now, um, who have had all those memories given back to them, and now they've gotten to see the lives they've lived. Like I think that's a pretty powerful thing.
Yeah, no,
So yeah.
absolutely. I think so too.
And now we have little Cryptarch Lavinia to question everything.
Yep.
Cryptarchs are such an odd bunch. I want to love them all. I do love Master Ives because he straight up calls out any Cryptarch that's just dumb and is like,
Yeah.
I don't like he. How many times has Ives called out Rahul and just been like, "F off, go get out of, just go away,
Yeah.
go. I don't care where you go, just go away." But I think Rahul kind of deserves it from his shenanigans at D1, where like you'd give him a purple and he's like, "Here's a blue," and you're like, "But what?"
Yeah, I'd say as far as Cryptarchs go, Ives is pretty well, and Ives is very loyal to the Reef, or was. We're not sure what's become of him since then.
Was he the one who we were thinking of that was on the Reef?
I'm fairly certain he is the one on the Reef. Yeah.
Was he the one that the voice actors of Balthier from Final Fantasy 12?
That I do not know.
That we couldn't remember the name of the guy that was on the Reef. That's pretty bad if we like the guy so much and we can't even remember the poor guy's name.
Yeah. All of this aside, say we are discussing the Cryptarch Lavinia, and
okay,
she is kind of a Cryptarch in training from my understanding. She's not a full-fledged Cryptarch. She's kind of like an apprentice.
So is this like her task? Like each apprentice Cryptarch is given a task, like, hey, discover this, and she's chosen the 9?
Uh it doesn't sound like it. As we'll see as we go through the entries here, I think her investigation of the 9 is a personal curiosity and
Okay.
actually not one that is sanctioned by the Cryptarchy.
Oh
Uh
no.
yeah. So actually that gets us really well into the first lore reading for tonight. We are reading from the lore book titled Dust, and this is the chapter titled The Stacks. And we're going to see what kind of trouble Lavinia gets up to. And it goes like this. The archives are silent. The staff have gone home for dawning festivities, and only the diligent city frames move through the stacks now, eradicating disorder, serenaded in soft susurrus by the wind of turbulence cleaners sweeping off the quartz storage plates in their cases of relic iron. Lavinia imagines that the frames are possessed by ghosts of nameless librarians from Nineveh, ancient Mesopotamian souls ready to pluck an intruder's eyes. Are there any librarian guardians? Can't guardians turn invisible sometimes? Maybe one's right behind her now, and its ghost is covered in the eyes of the library intruders. This spooks her so badly that she nearly falls off the catwalk. She bites her tongue instead, rearranges her aching legs, and keys in another search. She's already sifted through hours of tower audio records to extract keywords from Zur's babble. Now she just needs to follow that spoor back to the beast. She enters into a computer terminal. Remote archive database text only search initialized. Welcome user null string. Please enter search query. She enters 9 dust planetary alignment. Results. It lists the following results for her. Shimizu et al. Significant anomalies in dark matter detections cannot be explained by interactions of gravitational focusing bodies. Journey of Post-Collapse Cosmology Recovery, Volume 99. Gonzalez, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read all these. There's like, these are academic journal entries, essentially, from other cryptarchs that have done research that this computer terminal is bringing up as results for a search query on the 9 dust and planetary alignment. So she gets through to the end of this list of five or six different discussions on dark matter and its effect on the universe around it. Is it causing exos to reset? Is it causing issues with different telemetry data and such? And she gets to the end and the computer asks her more results. And she thinks to herself, strange, very strange. Full of references to the dark matter wind blowing through the solar system, a fact of galactic weather which every school child learns and then never thinks about again. And then something brushes across her scalp. Lavinia jerks up from the screen, one bit lip away from a scream. A sensor mite, barely a glitter in the dark, tumbles past on the air currents. It will come after her body heat, and if it identifies her, then her master will have her writing ethnographic studies of deep sewer graffiti. Hastily, she keys in her next search string. Come on, Lucky Lavinia, she whispers, though she hates the name. 9, Red Legion, Gaul attack on city, undetected, unforeseen, no warning. Results. Consensus Committee on the Invasion and Occupation of the City. Final report. Annex to the final report, failures of the city and city allies' warning and intelligence systems, unpublished, redacted. Annex to the final report, a culture of permissive espionage, the openness of the tower to faction agent and unknown vendor entities. Unpublished, redacted document. Unexplained CDM self-interaction immediately before Red Legion invasion of the city. Coincidence or purposeful interference? Rejected manuscript. More results? She enters. Why rejected unexplained CDM self-interaction? Rejection letter. Reviewers concur that the paper does not provide a mechanism by which cold, dark matter could interact with city sensors. Military experts attribute the Red Legion's stealthy approach to electronic deception by Scion operatives. More results? Lavinia freezes. Something with tiny, tiny legs is scurrying around the rim of her ear. She tries to get her hand up very slowly, but it's too late, and the little sensor mite is crawling inside. It buzzes, and the buzz turns into a tiny voice. Miss Garcia Umar Tawal, Master Rahul says. Could we have a word about your choices, please? And that's the end of that lore card.
That's just freaky. A little, that's making my ears twitch,
Yeah.
my eyes twitch. That's freaky. Well, at least now we know how they keep people out of there. Like, if someone's just snooping around, like, you don't even know that you're being recorded or earwig.
Well, and there's some really interesting things about that. So this tells us Lavinia is not a guardian. She is mortal. She is, I think, human. I don't know if they've specified.
Yeah,
but definitely not a guardian. And it's interesting to get a viewpoint from somebody that is in the cryptarchy, so knows, at least stories or real world accounts of guardian feats, and knows like, oh, guardians can go invisible. Is there one right behind me? Like she's psyching herself out
spooks her enough,
with a ghost story about a guardian just because they have the ability to go invisible, which is just really interesting to me.
I guess that's that is an interesting thought, right? Like, what's it like being a mortal living around all these paracausal beings,
right?
With all these fantastic, just crazy abilities. I mean, like, do they just have like arc warlocks running around turning light switches on with their fingers, like pew pew pew, and all these lights light up? Like, I mean, the invisibles, right? Like, now everyone can go invisible. Even warlocks can go invisible now. Like, that's an interesting.
No longer thought, is the boogeyman the monster under the bed. It's the invis hunter in the corner.
You god dang right. No, there's a few things in here that I really latch onto and really like. First, I really like the idea that the Cryptarch library is almost like the old Mesopotamian, like, I think of it as like the library at Alexandria. With like all the ancient scrolls, right? Like that thing has been lost to time, but then this is like a new version of it. I really like that idea. I really like that one.
Yeah, and say for anyone that has never had a reason to think to do this, is outside of academia, or is not actively writing a research paper, what the kind of results she's pulling up from this. And I also think it's worth noting, when the system says welcome user null string, that is indicating she has hacked the system to not register who is logged in.
I was gonna say something about that. I'm glad, like, you as an IT person and me as an IT person, we both saw that and recognized, oh, she's cheating the system to try to get in here and not get recognized. You cheater. So this is definitely an unsanctioned search.
Oh, absolutely.
Or not just unsanctioned, like, she doesn't want anyone to know about it.
Right. And the results that she's getting, where it's like, Shimazu et al. That means like Shimazu is the main author, but there were additional authors that were supporting of that document, and then it gives the title of the document and where it was published.
Co-collaborators.
Yeah, co-collaborators. You can see exactly this kind of printout if you were ever so inclined, by going to like Google Scholar and just doing a search there.
Yep.
Same thing. She is looking at research papers written by other people about, she's trying to find about the nine and about dark matter. What she stumbles into are unpublished papers and redacted information, which presumably she should not have access to.
Right. Well, and I was looking through like the people here. There's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 names that are listed. One of them over and over, Shimizu. Do we know who that is? I don't know if you see. I told you I'd find something to get you to Google in the middle of the recording.
So we don't have any reference of her
I didn't know if
outside
that was
of
like
yeah, she only shows up in one other area, and that is the Stolen Intelligence lore book.
Okay.
And she does not show up directly. She is one of, I keep saying she, I'm assuming just based on the name, but their
Sure.
work is being talked about between I believe it's Ikora and some of the hidden, because Shimizu theorized some things on Oryx, but apparently a very prevalent Cryptarch.
So there's that one. There's Gonzalez, Harry 4, which that's obviously an EXO. Harry 5, so an EXO that's been reset. And I'm gonna butcher this. Mwangi. Mwangji?
Your guess is as good as mine.
I'm so sorry to anyone who knows how to pronounce that correctly and is just screaming at me right now. So those 4, and then Lakshmi too.
Yeah.
Like, what is she doing researching the 9? And I'm so I don't want to say I'm glad Lakshmi's dead, but I'm glad that she is no longer doing the stuff that she was doing.
I'll agree with that.
So yeah. So there's all these different research papers, and then like she adds more to her search, right? Like she adds in, and I'm trying to follow her logic here. Like her first search is 9 dust planetary alignment, every variation of 9 Roman numeral spelled out, all that stuff. And then she does it again, but then she includes Red Legion, Gaul attack, and undetected, and why is there no warning? What's the deal with that? And that's what pulls up all these redacted papers. Or sorry, it pulls up the one free document, the Consensus Committee on the Invasion and Occupation of the City. And then all these extra reports added to it. So I mean, I'm assuming she's assuming, that's a weird thought, that the reason why Gaul's attack was undetected on the city was because of the 9.
That seems
she's trying to
figure
be
out the case, or she's got something that's got her on that track. She definitely pulled her original search terms from Zur, because Zur talked about his movements are based on planetary alignments, and that he confirmed essentially that the dust is something related to the 9. So that's where her first search terms came from. And then she says it's weird, like I'm seeing all these references to dark matter in the solar system with these search terms, which everyone knows about,
right,
and then like just forgets about because it's an unimportant weather detail essentially.
It's like, oh, it was windy today. Yeah, no shit, it was windy. It's windy every day.
Right.
Like nobody cares unless if it's like super windy, then you care about it. Dark matter's the same way. Dark matter's everywhere. Nobody cares about it until it creates a black hole, and then we're all effed.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if some of the titles of her first search are informing the second a little bit, because we get like the very first title is anomalies in dark matter detections cannot be explained by gravitational bodies. It can't be explained just by planetary movement.
Right.
Anomalies in dark matter detection as a function of topological complexities in orbital dynamics. massive
These are some
anomalies in dark
heavy.
matter
These are some
detection.
heavy physics stuff,
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
Like this is like.
And I think part of it's like they're not expecting the reader to be able to follow along with what is being presented in the titles,
Oh, sure,
but
sure.
there's an understanding that Lavinia at least is putting some pieces together based on everyone studied this dark matter anomalies and they all were studying them around this time. They're all seeing these anomalies around this time period, because all of these reports are coming out like boom, 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 one after another.
Yep.
And maybe that time period then coincides with the Red Legion, or you know, I think there's a jump in logic that only the character with the character's knowledge can make
Oh,
to
sure, sure,
then
sure.
link that to. Let me see if this relates to Gaul.
Kind of like how every once in a while, like you or I will see something in text and go, "Wait a second, doesn't that da 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 link to da
Yeah.
da 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 da?" And then we're like, "Oh shit, it does." And then that's where we start finding. So yeah, no, I'm following there. So then that leads her on to the committee on the occupation, and so then she keeps going that, and then she finds that one rejected manuscript from Shimizu.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's the one where it says military experts attribute to the Red Legion's stealthy approach to electronic deception by Scion operatives, which would kind of make sense. Um, like the Scions are extremely technologically advanced. Like I we they during the season of the Scion, which was what two season of Risen, yeah, where we did the psyops and stuff, and we dove into other minds. Like all of that's just technology based. We're not actually in somebody's mind. Like it's like the Matrix, right? Like it's just a digital representation of what is being presented there, or at least I assume that
Well,
is. Hopefully, we're not
it's
diving into
it's
people's
it's kind of
minds.
up in the air because the psions use psionic energy. They use psychic energy. I
Oh
think it's
shit.
assumed that that is a literal linking of psyches between beings with the scions as the conduit.
Well, shit. I always thought they were just using that as like fancy talk, like like they're just using a cool word to be like, yeah, we're da da da, just to make them sound like we're prestigious with our psychic da da. No, well,
I think
shit.
it's
Okay.
literally psychic energy, and I mean that tracks because Strand has been
Oh.
and the I keep wanting to say dark vision, but it's not dark vision. The Witch Queen abilities, deep
Oh,
sight.
deep
There
sight.
we go.
Yeah.
The both of those have been attributed as psychic powers.
But yeah, no, she so she finds this rejection letter, and so that's where they're trying to figure out like what the like even in this rejection letter they're trying to figure out like why was everything undetected, which then of course she gets spotted, she gets checked by the ultimate. God, I hate Rahul so much. I know he is canonically a dick, and I hate him. I really do.
Yeah,
And so he's just like, "Hey, what you doing? I don't think you're supposed to be doing that. Could you like come talk to us so we can reprimand you?"
I think he is definitely a little more forceful than that. He's not Surfer Dude
Yeah.
Rahul, but
Oh no no no! The guy from Office Space, the boss, right? Hey,
oh,
I'm gonna
I
need you to come
gotcha.
in on Saturday. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's Rahul
Okay.
now.
Okay. But no, to add some context here, because there may be some listeners that don't know if they never played year one D2. The event that all of this is focusing on, that this search is focusing on, um, at the very beginning of Destiny 2, the tower was attacked, and the way it was attacked was this really wonderful cutscene. Again, look it up, it's on YouTube somewhere, I'm sure, of Cade and Ikora and Zavala in the original tower, kind of in the war room, discussing like, hey, just make sure all our sensor systems are going on. What are the reports we're getting from our satellites? What are the reports we're getting? Just doing general, like, we want to know everything that's going on because that's our job. And it's discovered that they're not getting a feed from their satellites, period. Not that the satellites haven't detected anything, they're just gone. And they're like, what does that mean? And then through the clouds, you see these huge Red Legion ships emerge, and they just bombard the tower with missiles and take everyone completely by surprise. And that element of surprise is a big part of what allows the Cabal to be successful in taking the city. And that is the event that's being discussed here, is like, why was there not notice beforehand? Like, how did the Cabal perfectly navigate through all of the sensor arrays to be able to surprise attack the tower?
And her logic, for whatever reason, thinks that it's linked to dark matter and the Nine.
Yeah. But before she can go too far with that line of thinking, she gets the little ear mite literally in her ear.
It's so freaky. I can't even
Yeah. And good old Rahul telling her, like, get your ass out of there. We're gonna have a talk.
Okay. Well, where does that lead us?
So that leads us to the next chapter of the Dust lore book, which is called The Bone. And that one goes like this. They're waiting for Lavinia in the courtyard of the ruined tower, although they do not strike until she holds the guilty object in her hand. A Titan in New Monarchy red pins her to the ground. A hunter with a gun barrel as wide as the moon cuffs her and calls her a looter. Rahul has a watch on this one, the Titan remarks, consulting her black-tipped ghost. Says it's for her own protection. The hunter hisses and flinch back. She's got a bone. Get off of her, enough! This new voice is strange to Lavinia, but the power in it can only be Ikora Rey. You will never touch a mortal human in anger again. That is not our purpose. Thunder booms. Something detonates nearby, and Lavinia's ears pop. She gets the sense that, voluntary or otherwise, the two New Monarchy guardians have vanished. Lavinia tries to stand up, but vertigo and the cuffs pitch her sideways, and she lands hard on her hip. Master Rey, she gasps. I'm sorry, I should have filed a... Lavinia. Ikora's coiled fury has a tooth of fear in it. Open your left hand. There's a bone in her hand, a long chunk of jaw with one huge white protruding tooth. It's warm and comforting and solid. She clutches it protectively. The key, the egg tooth that will crack open the mystery of the Nine and put her back in her master's good graces and save her from the probation Rahul dropped on her when he hauled her out of the archives. With an effort of will that makes her shout out loud, she opens her fist and drops the Ahamkara bone. Ikora Rey makes it fly away. You weren't after that bone, it was after you. Did you make a wish, Lavinia? Did you ask to know about the Nine? She tries to explain that she didn't, that she only wanted to track the bone back to its source, Venus, hopefully, and to learn why the Nine needed the Ahamkara. Why do you think the Nine needed the Ahamkara? Ikora asks dangerously. To make wishes, Lavinia pants. Zur didn't appear in the tower until the end of the great Ahamkara hunt. Whatever they used to get from the Ahamkara... She leaves it unsaid. Maybe the Nine are now getting that from the Guardians. Ikora rubs her brow. I can't stop you, but if you keep looking, I can't protect you from the consequences either. Help me, Lavinia begs. There's something here something that connects everything. The trials and the Ahamkara and the Guardians and the Nine. There are things the consensus knows about Gaul's attack, things they haven't told us. Ikora puts up a finger, and Lavinia shuts up. Choose. Are you going to go back to school and let me pretend you were never here? Or do I have to report you for the theft of an Ahamkara bone? Lavinia takes a deep breath. I'm sorry, she says. I have to keep going. I'll try my luck. The tribunal's verdict is unanimous. Lavinia Garcia Umar Tawal has trespassed against her oath to guard the common welfare of humanity, and she will never set foot in the city again. And that is the end of that lore card.
Well, that escalated quickly. Jesus. So in the beginning here when the Titan and the Hunter jump her, is this a reactive jump or is this a preemptive ambush jump? Do we are they are they jumping her because they know that she's snatched this Ahamkara bone and they're like, you can't have that, what the hell? Or is it like ooh, we're gonna wait for Lavinia and we're gonna jump her and steal that shit and run away?
So I don't think they're trying to steal it. They mentioned that Rahul has labeled her as someone to watch. And there's a little bit of a time jump here. So she was discovered in the archives, apparently reprimanded and put on probation by Rahul. And her grand plan to undo that was, I'm going to steal an Ahamkara bone because I think they're related to the Nine and use it to trace it back to its source, and that may tell me more about the Nine. And I'm going to be this person that comes to everyone with this huge revelation, and they're going to forgive me for everything that they've accused me of, and it will all be good again. That at least is her mindset.
I'm trying to think. Well, and I'm trying to think of a single instance that an Ahamkara bone is in that has come out with a positive outcome.
Yeah.
And my immediate response is none.
Yeah. And the other thing here is Lavinia is mortal. And yeah, this is me adding in a little bit of my own kind of headcanon, but I almost feel like mortal wishes might be more dangerous than a guardian's wish or an immortal's wish.
I think so.
Just because I feel
or a paracausal's wish, right?
Right. Just because I feel like the things that a mortal would wish for are going to be grander, are going to be much more life altering potentially than someone that already lives forever.
Yeah. I mean, somebody that lives forever doesn't that really does truly man, I never thought of it from that perspective. That's a good thought.
So I think the series of events here is that Rahul placed her under watch because he knew she was a problem. She, trying to prove herself and continue her research on the Nine, stole this bone, presumably without anyone knowing.
Here's the question that isn't asked. Where the hell did she steal an Ahamkara bone from?
I mean, wherever they're keeping Savathun's body or, the Crown of Sorrow before it ended up in the helm.
If you start a Guardian Illuminati.
Well, no, clearly there's storage for dangerous artifacts somewhere in the tower.
Because and you and I know this, an Ahamkara bone presumably has this, well, not presumably, it does, has the same power as an Ahamkara. So you can still wish off of it, which is super weird that Shax has one hanging over his head.
Yeah, that's a whole nother That's a whole
I'm
nother
just saying
thing.
this.
Uh,
If these things are so dangerous, why were they not all destroyed? And like, they're dangerous enough to want to like destroy them all during the Great Hunts, but then maybe hang on to some of them as like a just in case. But just in case for what? We already know that the results are bad from wishes. Like, this is such a weird thing for her to have been able to get her hands on.
the only thing I can surmise is that they kept a few samples as means of study to try and understand how the Ahamkara worked or how the bones work.
All for science, right?
If we really want to dig into it, there's a bunch of guardians running around with Ahamkara bones strapped to their arms by a nature of
Just
various exotics.
literally like wire nutted on there, right? Like,
Yeah.
just wired onto their arms. Like, oh, this will work. Yeah, this will give me infinite super. Sweet. Yeah, yeah. No, you're right. All right.
So
You win this. You win this round. Myth. Yeah.
well, and I wonder if it might also be that Ahamkara bones have a stronger control over a mortal, over a causal being. Because like she like she has to like shout out in order to force herself to release her grip on this.
Yeah. And Ikora even says like, you weren't after it. It was after you.
Yeah.
Like.
So maybe its
Yeah.
influence is, Ahamkara influence in general is just a lot stronger with a causal being than a paracausal one.
I think you're right. And then of course, because of such, she's like, well, I'm gonna stick to my guns. Well, sometimes sticking to your guns kinda gets you screwed.
Well, I think she knew.
And so
She knew, like, if
you think so?
I continue this, Ikora told her, like, either you're gonna go back to school and we're gonna forget this happened, or I'm gonna have to report you. And I have to assume she knew what the possible ramifications of that kind of report were.
I think you're right.
And she still, she still made that choice. I also think it's interesting, and maybe this is nothing, but they very specifically call out that the guardians that like arrest her are New Monarchy, and it's, and also that like there, it makes sense, but there's this rule that if you are a guardian, you do not touch a mortal with anything remotely violent. Otherwise, or Ikora will vaporize you on the spot.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's. I mean, obviously we saw the like, and we talked about this in the Drifter series and other series as well. Like, the destructive power of the Guardians. That, I mean, they nuked a whole town. Hell, we talked about it in this series. They nuked an entire town just to get some cattle, like just to get a few scraps of beef. So like, the Guardians are obviously super powerful, and I think that restriction is there for a reason. Like,
Oh yeah,
you just don't. That's just like it, I feel like that's like the highest level of um what would you call that? Like that's like the highest crime, right? Like that's like the most the worst crime that you could commit as a guardian would be to lash out at a mortal and in anger, in whatever, but to lash out at a mortal is I feel like because that's the whole like that's the whole premise of a guardian. Like, that's
guard
why we are
humanity.
called guardians. You are guarding humanity. You are literally there. That is essentially your sole purpose, is to keep humanity guarded from everything else out there. And if you turn on that one point of focus and then turn on humanity, you now are no longer a guardian. Full stop. Like,
Right.
it doesn't matter if you're paracalls or not. You're no longer a guardian at that point. Now you're just a dude committing crimes.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind the next time you're in the tower and you're just bumping all the NPCs all over the place. They're just there to do a job, and you're there to do a job too, and that's save them, keep them safe.
So I think it's interesting. We see that Lavinia has been doing a lot of research on the Nine, even before her little escapade into the archives. She approached Zur and talked to him. She's tracked down enough information that she knows Zur didn't start showing up in the tower until the Great Ahamkara hunts happened. So, like, she thinks there's a correlation. She thinks, like, okay, maybe the Nine started coming to us because they couldn't go to the Ahamkara anymore for whatever it was they got from them. And, the question of, so then what are they getting from us by having Zur here? And that's why she had the Ahamkara bone. That's why she was linking Ahamkara to the Nine, was because of that correlation.
Okay. So she's kicked out of the tower.
She's kicked out of the tower. So now she's got to figure out where the heck she's going to go. And she's still continuing this investigation of, I want to know who the Nine are and what their purpose, what their intentions are. And so she is now out of the tower, and she finds herself in some interesting places. So the next chapter of the Dust Book is entitled The Kell, and it goes like this. The reef is punch drunk. Lavinia thinks that loss has driven the Awoken into a state of collective traumatic mania. Endless revels light up the purple sky. People leap off of the world and drift away into the artificial atmosphere to be collected, protesting woozily by the skiff load. Lavinia is a wallflower here, forever on the edge of things. She gets pangs of homesickness every night and tells herself that the reef is the right place to begin her journey home. This meeting right now might be the first step. Much mourning, the fallen at her side murmurs. Master Ives murdered, Varix missing. Spider hires away my friends. Well, I stay to guard Master Ives' work. You come in. Make yourself into a home. I will bring nitrogen tea and records. Thank you. Lavinia wants to laugh, or maybe cry, at the malapropism. If only she could make herself into a home, but it'll be all right in the end. She will find the Nine, bring the truth home, and earn forgiveness. The fallen returns with tea and devices. Watch, record from Prison of Elders. Master Ives fascinated by it. She watches the recording. She sees Skolas, fallen Kell of fallen Kells, waiting to die by combat. His huge horned armor lags his motions, like a weary companion trying to mimic everything he does. A servitor pumps ether into him. Lavinia wonders what would happen if she took ether. Would she feel clearly and coldly determined? Would she turn into a huge Lavinia? Would she stop missing her home? Mara. Skolas's mouth was not made for that name. Mara, do you hear me? The Queen of the Reef sentenced him to the fate of all fallen. Lavinia's companion sighs. To strive and struggle and fail, but he was already lost. His mind broke at the citadel, where he saw into time. Skolas blows white vapor. Frost crackles on his mask. You gifted me to the Nine, and they sent me back. People think you are a fool, that you made an error releasing me, led your people to die on my blade, as I led my people to die on yours. Lavinia's translator murmurs along with the Kell's words. The Nine's agent never told me why he released me. Apologies. This is Skolas still. The Nine's agent never told me why he released me. Now I know. You know also, I think. Both of you require the guardians, and the nine do not understand life and death. So they sent me back to you to make the guardians come. They did not comprehend the harm. I do not comprehend them either. I traveled along the Jovians for years in their dominion, but I do not know the nine. You, Mara Sov, you are the only one who bargains with them. You are the only one who has foreseen their role in the game. You keep your successes secret, so the world only knows your mistakes. No wonder I underestimated you. He hefts the scorch cannon his jailers have given him. Lavinia thinks of the tools his house once favored. Shuttle and loom. I saw the shape of the nine on Venus, a place that was once precious to them, where wishes could transfigure their flesh. I saw that they are bound to this star and to these worlds. You are of a kind in that way, you and the nine. Not I. I will be glad to leave this world, Marasov. I am tired of being a pawn. Skolas lays his huge horned head back against the cell wall. Lavinia, watching, spills her tea in excitement. They want to help us, she whispers. They're from our planets. They want to help. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so clumsy. She leans down to mop up the spilled tea. A flashbang grenade detonates in her face. The next thing she knows, an awoken officer is sentencing her under martial law to life in prison for espionage. Lavinia, fumbling for any sign of her good luck, is glad to see the fallen, at least, go free. And that's the end of that lore card.
Well, shit, man. This poor this damn. Oh, she just wants answers, and instead she gets a flashbang. Hey, you're spying, espionage, sentenced,
Yep.
life in prison. Sucks to suck, don't it? I'm curious of how much of that was like orchestrated by, like, Ikora and all that. Like, I feel like in my headcanon, like Ikora, after having seen her get sentenced away, still kept an eye on her with her hidden, and now there's like, boom, here's another, like, please stop looking for answers to the nine, Lavinia.
I think
It
this
just gets worse.
I think this is a little more than a please stop. Like,
this is a blatant stop. Like, this is definitely, like, I mean, how do you say please with a flashbang?
I don't know that Ikora would orchestrate sentencing a mortal to life imprisonment in the reef.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so obviously, like, I mean, you and I know the story of Skolas. That was probably one of my favorite times in D1, the Prison of Elders. The Skolas was part of the was it the first DLC or the second DLC? I could never remember which one comes first, House of Wolves or Dark Below.
I would say House of Wolves was after Dark Below, I think.
Either way. So the whole House of Wolves was, you're tracking down Skolas, and you track him through all this different stuff. I think the final capture point is at the top of the Ishtar Collective in Venus. And so,
yes,
according to this recording here, that is a recording of him while he is in prison, because he's recaptured, he's put in prison, and then you could go battle him once a week and try to kill him once a week. In which case, presumably you do, and he just gets revived. I don't know how that works, because video game.
yeah.
So yeah, Skolas knows that Mara has been to see the nine, knows that the nine has given Mara like Mara knows more about the plan, the plan. I put that in quotations, more than anyone. And then I like the idea that like the 9 sent me back to you because the 9 don't understand life and death, and the 9 themselves wanted the Aham, like, and we mentioned this before too. Ahamkara seemed to gravitate towards Venus for whatever reason. Like, there's something about Venus that just draws Ahamkara there. And I know I've mentioned this before in the fly-in scene on the Vault of Glass, which the Vault of Glass is on Venus. It's a real quick split second, but you can see 2 flying things in the background that look like dragons, and so presumably that they're Ahamkaras there. But Skolas, I after having died, I guess, and seen the 9 or whatever, they spit him back out and was like, here's bait. We need guardians now. Let's see what guardians, because guardians are like the ultimate research tool in terms of life and death, right? Like a guardian could just die over and over and over again, and then you can just interview him. Like, hey, how did that feel? What was that like? You died, you bled out, you starved to death, you whatever. How do you feel now that you're back alive? Like I feel like that's the ultimate research tool as far as life and death would be an immortal thing there.
That's literally what the Thanatonaut Guardian group is a group of warlocks that just kill themselves over and over to try and discover more about the actual like life and death from a spiritual, metaphysical point of view.
Oh my god. Well, now I'm scared to go on 10 streaks in the Crucible
now. But no, so we get a lot of really good information here. So to
really do
go back a little bit, the way it worked with Skolas, he was the leader of the House of Wolves, which Mara prevented the House of Wolves from joining the Battle of Six Fronts, because the House of Wolves went through the reef, and she had the option of just let them go and get to Earth and probably succeed in taking the city, because they were, I think, the biggest house, or get into a war with them, reveal our position in the reef, but hopefully give humanity a fighting chance of surviving without this giant army coming as backup.
Which presumably, I say presumably, worked.
Yes, it did.
It did. And then she took them. Like
so
she now has her own fallen.
She did the whole right of might, essentially, and by defeating the Skolas, the Kell, she asserted herself as the new Kell for the surviving members of House of Wolves. And for reasons yet unknown, when she defeated Skolas, what she chose to do with him was to give him as a gift to the 9. Now we don't know exactly why, like what she was getting out of that transaction, or the process itself, or what the 9 did with him while they had him. But at some point, the 9 made the conscious decision to release Skolas. And Skolas is saying they did so because they wanted to use him as bait to bring guardians into Venus. And we get a lot of really interesting info about the 9 from Skolas's point of view. So not only that, like, Mara has had dealings with them and has had successes, he says, with them, whatever that may mean, but he also tells us why the 9 were interested in the Ahamkara. Let me find the line here.
The wishes could transfigure.
I saw the shape
their
of the
flesh.
9 on Venus, a place that was once precious to them, where wishes could transfigure their flesh. I saw that they are bound to this star and these worlds. So I take that to mean that we were correct at the end of our last episode, that box of dust was literally the flesh of the Nine brought into existence by the Ahamkara.
Absolutely. It's monkey paw magic. They say we want to be real, and so they make them real, but in the way that the Ahamkara wants to do it.
Right.
And
And
there you
so
go.
to the Nine, on one hand, they're probably like, okay, we know that they're not going to do what we want them to do just off the bat. But the fact that they were able to take a piece of us and turn it into dust means they can do what we want them to do if we can figure out how to make them do it. You know, they have shown that
the
power.
one person that can bargain with an Ahamkara is Mara, which would I would presume that would what would drive the bargaining that Mara has between herself and the Nine, right? Like that's the whole reason why they want to keep bargaining with her, because she has figured out a way to interact with an Ahamkara and not have it do
right
fucky things. So yeah, that's because she's literally the only being that bargains with them, that actively like makes
can talk to them on equal
stuff.
terms, essentially.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And so it could have been it could have been a couple things. It could have been Ahamkara being assholes and fulfilling a wish in the way they, because if they never really fulfill the wish, it's a constant, food source for them.
Yeah. The user comes back and makes another wish, and then they sort of fulfill that, and then they get more and more specific, and the more and more they do it, the more and more they feed. Yeah, absolutely.
It could also just be a communication thing. Like the Nine may not have a way to communicate to the Ahamkara what they actually want done. So it could be a little bit of both. But regardless, they saw the Ahamkara as a route to become corporeal, but the Ahamkara went away with the great Ahamkara hunts, and then the few that were left were killed by the Nine because they were deemed too dangerous when Oryx invaded the system. And we saw that in our first episode.
That's exactly what we don't want, is 100,000 taken Ahamkara roaming the solar system willy-nilly.
So these are some pretty big revelations for Lavinia, because this is connecting some dots. Like, okay, Zur showed up because the Nine want to have a ability to communicate and or study Guardians, because the Ahamkara are gone, which is why he showed up at that time. But they're also part of our world, which means they have, she's assuming, the best interest of our solar system in mind, because they're stuck with us too.
Yeah.
And so she has this revelation of they're here to help. They're allies. They're people or things that we could potentially, work together with. And then she takes a flashbang to the face and is thrown in Awoken jail.
It's so bad. I just feel for her in that one. Like, you're in the middle of this revelation and then flashbang, and you're like, God damn it. Like, I feel like in an instance like that, like first you're thrown off, and then when the realization sits in as the guards rush in and take you, and then you're just like, damn it, I was right freaking there. Like, just let me finish this record. Like, yeah, that's a bummer.
So we see the next step of Lavinia's journey in the very next chapter, which is entitled The Leviathan. And it goes like this. Lavinia is shocked to find she prefers the CIC of an awoken warship to the safety of a prison cell. She was terrified of Cabal during the occupation, and now she's going into battle against them. But she's not afraid. This is exciting, she whispers to the royal guard at her side, as the ship plummets, stern first, toward the Cabal Leviathan. Don't you think? The royal guard's jaw twitches. Either she is subvocalizing in code or chewing her tongue off because she insults Paladin Kamala before she insults Paladin Kamala Rior's honored guest. 3 minutes to the closest approach, the flight dynamics officer calls. INCO, target emission status. The Leviathan is illuminating us with targeting sensors. No change. Paladin Rior pulls Lavinia out of her nook. Miss Umar Tawal, please come observe the instruments with me. Do you do this a lot? Lavinia wants to impress Paladin Rior, who sprung her from jail because, in her words, every brain in the reef is busy thinking about one problem, so I need your brain for another. Lavinia doesn't want to let her down. Step on the tiger's tail with these flybys? Shows of force, Kamala corrects her. We need Callus to believe that we are prepared to meet his ship with our own fleet. And if we can investigate other mysteries along the way, like your theory about the 9, then all the better. Here, now. This is the device you requested. Please, observe. Kamala shows her a pane of black glass, illuminated by a faint purple fuzz that sweeps left to right. Lavinia touches it in awe. That's dark matter? Correct. Every school child knows that most mass in the universe is dark matter, but it's nothing more than mass, and it never forms structures similar to structures smaller than a galactic halo. Dark matter has no charge. It passes through itself, neither gathers in clumps, has no chemistry. It is only ever dust. If you're right, Kamala draws in a breath. Any moment. Drive field error, the flight officer calls. Minor perturbation on the leading edge. We are encountering unexpected mass groups. No corresponding radar or LiDAR contacts. The black screen of the dark matter detector explodes into a frenzied purple-white shape, like the webs of a spider locked in sensory deprivation for 1,000,000 billion years. Thick cords of shadow stuff that twine into the strangling arms which branch against into thousands of tiny fingers that pierce straight through the Cabal Leviathan. Oh my, Lavinia breathes. That's dark matter we're passing through? Correct. And this is unusual, this level of structure? Miss Toel, Kamala says, a single molecule of dark matter would be unusual. This is blasphemous excess. This is impossible. No, Lavinia thinks. This is the 9. They're looking at Callus. They're reaching out. These are their hands. We should have thought to use this sensor earlier, Kamala muses. Our queen invented it to assist navigation when we were losing ships near Rhea. A phaeton backscatter scan. Very clever. Everything she did seems to make sense eventually. She was so very far-sighted. No one else ever bargained with the 9 as an equal, did they? No one will ever know what good she did for them. Our queen of secrets. I'd have to contact the city. Lavinia fumbles for some way to get a capture of the screen, a picture of the 9. She doesn't have her tablet. I found them. About that. Rior's armored hand falls on her shoulder. The Queen's edict also forbids me from disclosing the reef's knowledge of the 9 to individuals without regal clearance. So, thank you for your assistance, Miss Towell. Take her back to her cell. If anyone ever calls her Lucky Lavinia again, she thinks she just might shoot them. And that's the end of that lore card.
I would. I wouldn't even skip a beat. Well, this is neat. So obviously she's still in jail, like she's still in trouble. But she gets to see the 9. I mean, and that's a really we always talked about how like the 9 and dark matter are linked, right? Like that's the whole thing. Mm-hmm. But then that idea of like they're massing together is like a hand, like
reaching out, trying to figure out what the Leviathan is, what a cabal is, what is Callus doing here, what all's going on here. Like, this is a really neat interaction here. I mean, and it's kind of a bummer she doesn't get to take a picture of it, right? Like, look, there
Right,
they are.
yeah.
That's the 9. Like, that's a super bummer. But I mean,
Yeah.
frickin' queen. Like, that's. But at least now we know, or we have at least a better understanding of the Awoken, specifically Mara and the paladins and the higher levels of echelons of people that are in her folds. Um, uh, Maybe not necessarily communicate with the 9, but are able to see the 9 happening. Like, the one line, the whole, like, one molecule, a single molecule of dark matter is unusual, and this is just like blasphemous excess. This is just straight impossibility. Like, this should not be happening. There's dark matter shouldn't, like, it just passes through itself. It doesn't clump up. It doesn't do this. And they're seeing it as this, like, clumpy thing looking through the Leviathan, touching it, feeling it, figuring out, like, what the hell. Like, yeah, this is super cool. I really like this idea of just being able to watch the 9 interact with something. Like, that's, and especially from, like, the Cryptarch point of view, right?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
just getting to observe the science of this, of like, oh my god, this is happening. Like, we get to see the 9 mess around with something. That's super cool.
Yeah, and this is like proof positive for
Yep.
a lot of her theories, a lot of Lavinia's theories. Okay, 9 are, you know, some have some agency. I don't know if she's come to the conclusion they're made of yet, but they have control of dark matter. It informs them in some way. It allows them to gather information in some way, and that, you know, they're tied to the planets because presumably the way I'm picturing this in my mind is that she has this little screen, and the way I'm seeing it in my head is similar to if you've ever seen like magnet paper, where you take a piece
Oh
of
yeah,
paper
yeah.
and you put it over like a phone.
Like the back of an iPod or
Yeah,
something, and you can see all the magnets that are in it.
exactly.
Yeah.
I see it as
Yeah.
she's holding up like a giant one of those, you know, a high tech one of those, but instead of magnets, it's showing her where, you know, dark matter clusters. And when she's
Yeah.
holding, you know, when she's just looking through the cockpit, the windscreen, it's just, you know, space and the Leviathan. But when she pulls this paper up, it's like this giant spider web that's invisible otherwise of dark matter that is
Yeah.
reaching out and attaching itself to everything in the orbit of this planet that it sees as something the 9 want to know about. The Leviathan in this
Because
case.
the Leviathan was used to be parked over Nessus. Now hold the hell on here. Nessus can reach out, but Pluto can't.
Well, Nessus is a centaur around Saturn, so it'd be Saturn reaching out.
Whatever. Stupid dwarf planet. Whatever. I'm not bitter now. Now I am bitter. Anyway, so presumably whatever planet is that the Leviathan is near at this point in time, that agent of the 9, or not that agent of the 9, that member of the 9 is reaching out and looking at it and
Yeah.
messing with it, trying to figure it out.
Although who's to say that they are bound to only their planet's orbit? Like, maybe, I mean, dark matter is
I feel
everywhere.
like they are.
They might be
This is
able to
true.
collectively, you know, use it
Because who knows
within
how they
the solar
pass
system.
information, right?
Right.
Like every time we see them talking, they're all talking like at the same time, finishing each other's sentences and all that stuff. Like yeah, no, you're right. Like there's nothing to say that they have to be restricted to their own planet, but I feel like they are. I feel like their individual presences are. Maybe they're not restricted to the planets. I don't know. Maybe I don't. It could go either
I
way.
think they're certainly restricted to some degree. Like they're at the very least to our solar system, to the heliopause.
Right.
But I think they might have agency within the heliopause.
Okay. Because even Skolas mentioned that, right? Like they are bound to these planets.
Yeah,
like they are bound to this sun and this star and its planets. Yeah. So they're definitely bound to this solar system. Just, you know, whatever within that solar system is where they can kind of interact with.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Interesting. Is dark matter, and this is just kind of a random like theory I'm poking at here. Is dark matter affected by gravity? Just the force of gravity?
That is a good question. Let's find out.
Aha! More Googling for myth. Because I'm curious, because obviously everything in the solar system is affecting on everything else in the solar system.
Yeah.
With gravity.
So because dark matter has mass, it
yes.
it
mass
does have
is a property of
gravitational
gravity.
influence. Yep.
9.8 meters per second squared
is Earth's gravitational force.
That's Earth's gravitational force. Yeah. Ha-ha! See, I remember some things. But yeah, gravity is a product of mass.
Yeah, something has to have mass to have gravity. Everything that has mass has gravity.
Absolutely. So I mean, I'm curious if like the gravitational pulls is what allows the different members of the Nine to be able to kind of mess around with each other and interact with each other. Like I'm just curious as to see like what is there causing that interaction? Like how are they?
Right.
You know, it's easy to look at how like dogs interact or humans interact or birds interact, but like the Nine are so. That'd be cool to observe. I would have loved to have been just a fly on the wall in this cockpit, just watching this screen, going, "Oh my god, that's super freaking cool."
Yeah, I mean, we can theorize to some degree if they're made up of dark matter, maybe the way they communicate is by literally sending particles of dark matter that carry those thoughts between each other.
Oh my god!
Like it's a really interesting concept to try and wrap your head around how a being that doesn't have a form but has conscious thought would interact with like beings.
How does Saturn talk to Jupiter?
Right. And I mean,
that's fucking
maybe it's essentially
that's so cool. That's such a like philosophical question, right? Like that's I love that. That's got me kind of giddy right now. Okay. Well, Lavinia's back in her cell now.
So Lavinia does go back to her cell, and she is not allowed to distribute any of these grand findings she has discovered to anybody.
It's like the ultimate secret. Yeah. Like you get access to it, and then you can't tell anyone.
This is post the Taken War. So like Mara is gone. As far as the Awoken are concerned, they consider her dead. That's why the Reef was in this state of like perpetual partying, because they just didn't know what else to do with their grief.
They really didn't, and that's they even say in the one like the flybys, right? Like there's presumably not a whole lot of Awoken ships left, so they're doing these quick shows of force.
Try and make it seem like they're a bigger force than they are.
Kind of putting up a smoke screen, right? Like yeah.
But so Lavinia is sent back to her cell, but she doesn't stay there, and we actually get to see some really interesting information come out of her next little adventure. So this one is also in the Dust book, chapter entitled The Gate. And I'm going to read through the first half of this, and then there's a part where Lavinia accesses a document, and in the lore card, they give you like a paragraph of that document. But we get the full document elsewhere. And so I'm gonna like pause there and then go to the actual document and read through it in its entirety.
Reading.
Because it's really interesting.
Awesome. We've been doing a lot in this series of like this, like in the middle of one chapter, it references something else.
There's
and
a
then
lot
we
of
get
stuff.
to go read that chapter
Yeah.
and go back.
No, there's a lot
That's
of
super
stuff
cool.
that is like linking into each other, which is really cool.
I love seeing that.
So, we're going to start again with the gate, and it goes like this. The Scout missile detonates less than 100,000 kilometers away from Cocytus, a pinprick of antimatter annihilation that energizes thousands of bomb-pumped lasers to spike the void with light. One of those beams strikes the Corsair ship, pierces the stealth system, and reflects. They are discovered. Lavinia, the Corsair radios. I'm detected. I have to run. That wasn't the deal, Lavinia shouts, pacing in front of a humming portal. You break me out, you bring me here, and you carry my findings to the city. I need another 10 minutes. No time. Royal Guard coming. Shouldn't have paid in advance. Bye-bye. The channel disintegrates into digital static as the Corsair's ship accelerates away. Lavinia swears and beats her suited fists against her helmet. She's trapped in Cocytus. And the last time the Awoken trapped anyone here, those poor souls went utterly insane. The doomed crew of the dead orbit scout ship Sophia called this place A113, an innocent catalog number. They had no idea that the gates aboard, once a Golden Age experiment, had been captured by the hive deity Crota, and those gates consumed them all. Now Crota is gone, and Lavinia has gambled everything that the portals have fallen into other hands. Ahamkara make the unreal real. Callus's ship is surrounded by a halo of unreal dark matter, like a ring of probing hands. Guardians can manipulate reality itself. There is a pattern here, a story, and it leads to Cocytus, to what these gates might do. Logs, she says. She pages frantically through the observations left by the awoken sentries once stationed here. Cocytus was abandoned when the Red Legion attacked. All its defenses scavenged to reinforce Vesta. What came out of the gate? What did you see? She says, and she reads. We're going to pause. So the document she is reading can be found in the lore book called Stolen Intelligence. And there's a chapter in there just titled Cocytus. And the word itself is also unique. So Cocytus is a Greek reference again. Specifically, it is a river, one of the rivers to the underworld. Similar to the river Styx. There was another river which I'm blanking on the name of that we talked about in our Glycon series. But the Cocytus is the Greek river of wailing, or the Greek river of suffering. And in some cases I found it is synonymous with rebirth as well. Like this wailing or screaming is associated either with a soul departing unwillingly down the river, or a soul being born, as in like a screaming baby kind of thing. So an interesting kind of duality there. But keep that in mind, because the Cocytus and Cocytus gates are very very important. So this is the report that she gets, or that she reads through. And it goes like this. Access restricted. Subject, intercepted transmission. Sensitive, contents below sniffed from encrypted reef datacomms. Number 1. We are maintaining our containment posture at Cocytus. I assess no immediate danger to the system, and we have enough firepower to destroy the station and its mechanisms remotely if the on-site warheads fail. The station remains in the stable, heliocentric orbit where it was parked after the destruction of Ceres. Number 2. I do not ask confirmation of these theories, and in fact I beg you do not address them. But I have reviewed the site records and the fate of the Sophia's crew after they were herded to Cocytus. It stinks of hive madness. The Cocytus apertures must, at the time, have opened into a hive manifold associated with Crota. Whatever their original purpose, when Crota established his presence in the system, they became conduits into hell, and the Sophia's crew's ugly end prove it. Whoever drove the Sophia to its doom then installed the Cocytus instruments around the original Golden Age facility to study Crota's manifold. Number 3. Crota is dead. His hold on these gates has passed. Now something else is trying to pass through into our world. But it is so alien, and its sending so baffling, malformed, that I fear this can only end in further madness. Number 4. The first visitors through the third gate at event time 0000 were simple hydrogen atoms. Over the course of 72 hours, the emissions developed from diatomic hydrogen to nitrogen, carbon, oxygen, water, and simple organic molecules. At the 80-hour mark, we received our first macroscopic visitor, a pellet of thick black hydrocarbon tar. Until 8234, the gate vomited tar containing increasingly complex monomers and polymers. Number 5. The visitors then began to assume geometric form, a hail of cubes and hexagons, each built from molecular crystal of the same form as the whole, a series of fractal shapes that shattered under internal flaws, several capsules or membranes of increasingly complex structure containing water or oil. These may have been cellular precursors. Number 6. At 524 hours, a living organism appeared. Death was immediate. Remote dissection describes a spherical body, radius approximately 1 meter, surfaced in thick hydrocarbon tar. Deep, evenly spaced throats converged on a central cavity, perhaps intended to serve as lung and stomach. The body exhibited undifferentiated tissue of primitive plant-like cells, capable of spasming to pump air or fluid in and out of the throats. Without enzymes to catalyze metabolism or internal structure to dispose of waste, the organism could not survive. Cell death occurred almost instantaneously throughout the mass. There was no provisions for self-repair or reproduction. Number 7. At 690 hours, the gate emitted a tubular organism. For 90 seconds, the organism moved across the gate chamber by contracting and expanding, and then expired. Remote dissection describes a 2-meter-long body with a spinal cavity full of energy-rich carbohydrate fluid. The organism's contractions forced this fluid through a capillary network, where simple cells catabolized the carbohydrates into energy to power further contractions. The buildup of heat and waste quickly denatured the enzymes required for metabolism, and the organism died. There were no provisions for self-repair or reproduction. Number 8. The gate has remained inactive since, barring short emissions of molecules which may be experimental proteins. Remote drones have registered similar ambient molecules within the Hellmouth on Luna, though we have been unable to identify their source. We will maintain the quarantine until otherwise instructed. The overwhelming impression that I have is one of learning, of increasing sophistication in the synthesis and arrangement of matter. The atoms in these structures were isotropically pure and impossible to date, but I have the uncomfortable sense that even they were freshly made. Probes and instruments dispatched through the third gate do not return. Annihilation is apparently immediate, and so total that it seems to result from a fundamental failure of the ability to exist rather than any weapon or countermeasure. Yet something does exist on that far side, and it's trying to learn the rules of our world from the very first principles. I do not eagerly anticipate its next creation. And that is the end of the intercepted messages.
Holy shit.
So we're going to pause before we finish
freaking
reading
learning.
the gate.
Okay.
So
sorry, I'm freaking out here because it's learning. It's literally going through scientific method. Like it knows it needs a throat to talk, but then it doesn't realize that energy is a thing.
Yeah.
Shit. This is like breaking my brain right now. The 9 are learning. It's got to be okay, all right. Whew, slow down, Nick.
Yes.
Slow down. Okay, so the 9 are learning. They are actively learning here. And it's got to be the 9 on the other side of this gate. Like wherever this gate has been connected to on the other side, it's got to be the realm of the 9. They talk about the whatever they send through just stops existing. Like it's not that it's blown up, it's not that it's dead, it doesn't get taken or anything like that. It literally just ceases to exist because it doesn't know how to exist. What the physical properties of that device doesn't know how to exist on the other side, so it just stops existing. But I mean, to see the sophistication level of like single cell, like not even single cells, single atoms, hydrogen, the simplest atom, single electron, single proton, single neutron, 1 1 and 1. Start with that. Evolves further across the board into oxygen and carbon, because we as humans are carbon-based life forms. Like that's just what we are. But it took them 82 hours, right? Over the course of 72 hours, the emissions, like literally at the 0 mark, boom, hydrogen. Then over the next 72 hours and up to the 82-hour mark, a thing appears. It took them another 500 hours for a living thing to come out of this gate. And then another 100 and almost 200 hours after that, a more complex living thing, essentially a worm, came out of the gate. Like it had the ability for energy consumption and usage, and like the level of evolution that's happening there in less than 700 hours. So what is that? A week?
Yeah, something like that.
72 hours, 3 days. No, that's got to be more than a week.
Got to be more than that.
I don't know. The math is failing me right now.
Yeah, a little over 1 week is 200 hours.
Okay, so 1 week is 200 hours. This is at 700 hours. So this is 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So almost 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks. A living thing, a worm comes out of this. 2.5 weeks to evolve from a single hydrogen atom to a living thing that lived for 90 seconds. Like, what the hell? First off, who's ever watching these recordings of this stuff coming through, this has got to be like the most horrific thing you're watching ever happen. Like, this is like the thing of nightmares. Like, this is just it's mind-blowing, this. And then it just shuts off. Like, that's it. It's been dormant ever since. So presumably the 9 got whatever information they needed from that week, 2.5 weeks of experimentation, to then go on to 3.5 weeks. 3.5 weeks of experimentation to then figure out, okay, well, we'll either A, we're failing too hard, or we've got the information we need to now try to put that information together. And Lavinia came across this stuff.
So yeah, Lavinia is on Cocytus, where the Cocytus gates are.
The actual gate. She's literally stuck at the gate.
She is literally at the place where this report was being written.
Holy shit.
The gates that this report is being written about are there in front of her, on this planet. Now, a couple of other things I think are worth pointing out. So this is absolutely the 9 learning how our reality works from that base molecular level, and then literally trying to like this isn't natural evolution. This is the Nine are literally giving themselves a crash course in physics, in microbiology, in like
Everything in just
they're
science in general.
they are trying to
Like-
create beings. They're trying to create living beings on our
complex
reality.
living beings. Like that's mind-blowing. Not just like little single-celled organisms. These are complex beings they are trying to create out of thin air, essentially.
The other, and that is important. So the other thing that is really, really crazy about this, and they reference this, the molecules being used to develop these things, or even the single molecules that came through, the single atoms of hydrogen and whatnot at the beginning, they couldn't date them because they were brand new. And for
That's
anyone that
mind-blowing.
doesn't, for those that may not know, there's a fundamental law of physics that like atoms are not created or destroyed. Like the universe is made up of all the atoms we're ever going to have in the universe. They can change, they can be manipulated. Protons and neutrons can change to form different types of substances. But what's here is what's here.
Yep. And we only know that because we know that atoms decay at a very defined rate. And that's how we do like carbon dating is the rate of decay amongst the atoms that are there. But the fact that they can't do that to these because they are brand new molecules.
Which means that the Nine have enough power, ? To literally make new atoms in our universe.
What the fuck? Like, the little scientist in me is just like, oh my god, this is crazy. But yeah, no, this is mind-blowing. This is genuinely mind-blowing to see the Nine just try to like create a thing. And I mean, the only purpose I can think of is so that they can communicate, that they can exist in this realm of existence.
Yeah.
God, that's so mind-blowing.
So, and the other thing here that's worth pointing out is that, they said originally these gates, the gates themselves are a golden age tech. They were created by humanity during the golden age. But the gates were tapped into by Crota when he arrived here, as a means of transport between like Crota's throne world and our world.
Basically reaching across like ascendant plane and all that jazz.
Yeah.
The whole like stack of coins
It
thing.
very much seems their purpose is to transcend through different like dimensions or realities.
So I'm assuming like a portal like we see at the beginning of the raid.
You have to be a little more specific than the raid.
Sorry. Taken King raid.
Yeah.
The big, why can't I remember the name of the raid? King's Fall.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Sorry, little scientist in me is just completely taken over. It's just like, no, I've got control of the brain. You can't have it back. But yeah, so I'm assuming this portal is similar to that like ascendant looking portal that we see there every time we go into the ascendant plane. That this is one of those types of portals, right?
Well, I mean, it's man-made though. It wasn't created by the Hive. The
Oh,
Hive just
okay.
saw it and were able to go, oh, we can tap into that. And so
just straight up hijacked it. Just straight up null.
Yeah. But with the death of Crota, that now that gate was available for other things to start messing with, and the Nine did. And what is interesting though is they reference, we have seen these same ambient molecules within the Hellmouth on Luna, on the moon, but we haven't been able to identify their source. That seems to indicate to me that there is another gate in the Hellmouth that the Nine also have access to and have been running experiments there as well.
Oh my god. Can you imagine if we go to the moon, like, and just all of a sudden this thing
This is a worm. Like the only thing I can think to call it is a worm because of its worm-like movements. Just spits out of the hell mouth, and then you're just like, "What in the hell is that?" And then it just dies, and you're like, "What the hell was that?" Like everyone just looking at it, going, "What the hell was that?"
I would hazard a guess that they're not making worms anymore.
Oh shit!
Because they are using a black tar-like substance to try and create living beings, and they reference those living beings are still encased in this black tar-like substance that seems to be full of carbohydrates and other chemicals.
All sorts of rich energy-giving stuff.
Yeah.
Well, not energy transferring.
And
Holy cow.
who do we know that is related to the Nine that is a black tar-like entity that has no origins as far as we know?
Oh my god.
It's our good old broken back Zur.
Oh my god.
So
they don't need to do experiments. Oh my
god.
Because
they succeeded. They made a being that can survive on our side, and that is their very first emissary.
Shit. I don't know what to do with that information now. They literally created him out of thin air. Get the fuck out of here.
Now, there's nothing that indicates that directly, but I think it's a pretty good bet that that's what happened.
I mean, it's why he doesn't have a face.
Well, and that's another
that
thing.
explains so much about him.
So his face is just a bunch of squiggling tentacles that are constantly moving. The Nine have shown that they try and imitate, but they do not have a good understanding of what the makeup of a person is, or of an entity in our reality is. So to them, their observations may just be to us what are facial movements to express different emotions and talking and all of that. To the Nine, that may just translate as into like, okay, the piece of the body that is at the top moves, so let's just make it move all the time.
let's just make
and that translated into tentacles.
I like that. I like that train of thought logic, right? Like, I don't know what the fuck that does, but it moves a bunch. So why don't we just make something that moves a bunch?
And that's true for every being we've observed in this reality. So clearly that's something important to being on that side of the gate. So we need that. So let's make that.
Because they're trying to. That's what it is. Because like with all the experiments, they're trying to figure out like what is important, like what is the primary things that need to exist for that being to exist. Oh my god, I mean, how else would an otherworldly thing like look at our species and perceive? Jesus, man, this is.
So, with
my brain.
With that information in mind, we're going to return to the lore card, The Gate, and we're going to finish it off. So we stopped where she had started reading the logs.
Which real quick before we jump back into it, it mentions and this may just be me reading too much into this. It mentions the doomed crew of the dead orbit scout ship Sophia called this place A113. A113 is the big thing in every single Pixar movie because that was the room that everyone stayed at the campus where they studied to make animations. And so in my head, this is just like another long lost Pixar creator that named this gate. Because if you go look at every Pixar movie, every single Pixar movie has A113 somewhere.
References it somewhere.
And it's all just a tribute to the main room that they all learned how to do animation in, like when they were all in college.
Yeah, not impossible. I don't know if that's the case.
That's my curiosity, right? Like, is this lore card? Did whoever write this lore card study there? And now they're working at Bungie, and this is what they get to do. Like, come on, you, Mr. A113, I see you. Okay, so back to Lavinia discovering these logs.
Yeah, so Lavinia has discovered these logs, and now we're going to pick back up on the gate lore card after she has finished reading them. So it goes. Lavinia reads through the logs again, horrified and fascinated. Something on the far side of the gate is learning to assemble atoms, molecules, even haphazard life. Something from a world of darkness and dust, probing its way into our structured existence, trying to cobble together a message, an emissary, a body. The 9 are on the far side of this gate. She's sure of it. She has found them. But to meet the 9 directly, would that be madness? Would there be any return? Would she ever see the city again? She's come so far for her truth. An alarm sounds in her helmet. Incoming transmat. The suit warns her. Incoming transmat. Her radio barks at her, stern as Ikora Ray. Cryptarch Lavinia Garcia Umar Tawil. It's Paladin Rior. You stand in violation of the Queen's law. Surrender yourself and you will be treated fairly. Lavinia stares into the yawning gate. Beyond it lies a realm of utter darkness and disillusion, a place where nothing exists except the most alien forms. To go there would be suicide. She would die like the poor Tarbol creature. But what lies behind her? Failure? Surrender? Shame? A life in a cell. Lucky Lavinia, she says, and she leaps through. And that's the end of that lore card.
What? 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 She. What? I mean, I get it. Like, what? Okay. Keep going.
Yep. So she has leapt through the gate.
I'm broken now. This is me broken. You broke my brain with the thing, and now you've broken my soul and my spirit. Lavinia, no.
So the next lore card we're going to read is just entitled The 9. Also from the book Dust. And it goes like this. I am. I am, I am, I am, I am, I am. At first, this is all the loop of dust can calculate. It is the hardest thing in the universe for the dust to make a loop at all, because like a gust of wind or a river, it was only meant to move one way. For a mind to function, the end of one thought must alter the beginning of the next. So, like rivers, like wind, the 9 could not have minds until they came to make loops. Lavinia Garcia Umar Tawil comprehends the 9. They were already ancient when the first human beings named themselves. Their flesh was older than stars, the dark dust wind that blows through the galaxy, pinched by the gravity of Sol and its planets, drawn into their cores and exhaled again. These were the 9. In time loops did form. Great arcs of outbound dust collapsed back to their sources to create a circuit of shadow. The thickening and thinning of these circuits were the first thoughts of the 9. They dwelt in massive indifference, unborn primordial gods. There was no force among them except gravity, no structure except the distribution of mass. Their hearts were in the cores of worlds, but their farthest streams faded out into the turn of the galaxy. They were the fountains of Ecleus, the night before chaos. But life arose on the worlds at the heart of the 9. Tiny, complicated motions of ecosystems and metabolisms and computations. That life left mass shadows in the wind of the 9, plucking at them like harp strings. From these trembles of structure, the 9 learned to seed enormous resonating waves, thoughts vaster than worlds. And so the 9 awoke, and in time they understood that they were as fragile as they were mighty, For if the life that seeded their thoughts ever passed away, they too would vanish. They had no eyes to catch light, had no ears to hear, and yet they turned their wills upon the alien world of matter and strove to learn, for they knew they had to protect their hearts or die. With a horror of revelation so absolute that it would drive her mad if she still had any sanity to lose, Lavinia understands where the nine have always been. They are within everyone, every system, every living and moving thing. Trillions and pentillions of slim, dark matter tentacles plunge through all of our bodies, drinking the complexity of our lives and thoughts. We are pinched silhouettes impaled on the twitching of infinitely long spider legs. And that's the end of that lore card.
I and I'm spent. I love this. I love this journey that Lavinia has been on so far, and it just culminates in this of just like the nine are just of dust. Like the nine are older than anything, because I mean, for like we said, for all the matter all the matter that's in the universe is all the matter that will ever be in the universe. And so dark matter being part of that, for the dark matter to coalesce into something, albeit all they had, and like what we theorized, all they had was gravity waves. Like that's it. That's all they had was the gravitational pull of the sun, of the dust circling the sun as the solar system was being formed, and then those formed into 9 different. Well, I guess 8, because fuck you, Pluto. Fuck it. I'll give up on Pluto then. If the 9 gave up on Pluto, then I'll give up on Pluto, because that's the way it is. But for all of that to coalesce into these different beings and different consciousnesses, and then for the 9 to see, this world of matter, this world of space and existence to form and have life in it, and to know that, like, that one line, like, to know that if the life here was ever snuffed out, that the 9 too would be snuffed out. So like they're seeing the whole the darkness, saying, well, there's a final, like, I'm curious if the 9 have any type of and maybe this is just me kind of speculating a little bit, because we know that, like, the gardener and the winnower, the witness and the whatever, they formed each universe, and each universe, it always came down to the final shape. And I'm curious if the 9 were in, or some semblance of the 9, or something similar to the 9, was in every universe that was ever formed, because presumably everywhere that there's dark matter, like the 9 would exist. But then that the 9 know of this idea of the final shape, and they say, oh, well, now that we're a consciousness, now that we have existence, we don't want that existence to stop. Just like any other being that has existed, they don't want to stop existing. So they see this idea of the darkness coming, of the witness coming, or to bring on the final shape, and they don't want that to happen. So now they know that they've got to protect this place. And what better way to help protect it than to be able to communicate, or talk to, or interact, even just interact with all the living beings that are in this system. And of course, the most prevalent one being the Guardians, which would explain why Zur is even here. The 9 are literally telling Zur, go help those things. Give them guns, give them armor, give them whatever they need to help protect this existence, so we can keep existing as well. God, this card is so good.
Yeah, this card has some abstract concepts that I want to try and offer a different way to look at it, to hopefully make it a little easier to understand. So it talks about the 9, the birth of the 9 was from these dark matter particles being drawn in by the gravity of a planet, of a planet's core, and those particles eventually reaching this pattern of stretching out and then coming in this big loop that passes through and around a planet. But that's all it was. It was just a loop of dark matter. It didn't have sentience. It had the possibility for it, but it didn't have sentience at this point. It wasn't until organic life formed on the planet that this loop passed through that the movements of that life made ripples in the dark matter. And those ripples are what gave the 9 sentience. So you can think of the beings that are on a planet as being kind of the brain synapses of the 9 that is, resides as part of that planet. And so
that's mind-blowing. That's legitimately mind-blowing.
I know. So if life were to be snuffed out on a particular planet, if say
it's like brain, it's
they
like
become brain
killing
dead.
the 9. Yeah. Holy shit.
And they're just particles again. Because there's nothing.
Oh my god! There's nothing for them to like interact with or pass through or anything.
Yeah, there's nothing
Holy
making
shit.
those ripples to allow them to have thoughts, which is why they're so dependent on the continued existence of things in the solar system.
It's like a what do you call that? A symbiotic relationship where like they. Well, I guess life doesn't need 9 to exist for.
No.
Are the 9 a parasite?
I don't know if
no, because they don't feed off of it. They just they exist.
They're just dependent.
It's like a dependent. Yeah, man.
So
that's just
when everyone files their taxes this year, you can mark off the 9 as a dependent.
Oh, I'm doing it. I wonder if I can get away with... Dude, if I get the one IRS guy that's a Destiny player and he's just like, well, shit.
Well, damn. I didn't think of that.
You win. Now, can I only claim 1 9? Or since their consciousness exists amongst all the planets, can I claim all 9 of them?
Oh, I don't know. We're getting into some stipulations there. Like, are you only responsible for Earth, or are you responsible for any of them?
Oh shit! I feel like I'm only responsible for Earth. I'm not necessarily responsible for Jupiter or Mars or anything. Like, yeah, okay, all right.
So Lavinia is in the portal, experiencing all of this. All of this knowledge is coming to her. She is understanding what the 9 are, as she is essentially going insane herself.
Yeah.
But that's not where her story ends quite yet. We have one more lore card from the Book of Dust, which is entitled The Witch. And it goes like this. Came now the traveler, and with it a strange hope. For the traveler's light had the power to cause without causation. If the 9 had the light, they could seed their own minds, free themselves from the dependence on matter life. They could gain forces beyond gravity to structure themselves, and so become more than wraiths of dark dust. They could enter the mad alien superworld of our chemical reality. So they turned to this new hope and were divided. Come to me, a voice calls to Lavinia, although there is nowhere to go, nothing to be, not even emptiness, but the absence of anything to be empty or full. Lavinia perceives without emotion that she now exists as a structure of dark dust, a sandstorm blowing against itself. Come, the voice calls. I am Nasaya. You are not safe. Come with me. Not safe? No, of course she's not safe. Because there are factions among the 9. One faction sent Zur and Orin to study guardians and the light, to seek the secret of effect without cause, and to protect the source of that secret, the last source now that the Ahamkara are gone. Those 5 played at alchemy with the Cocytus gates, turning dark dust into energy and then into matter, but they could not unlock the secrets of our mad existence. They needed ambassadors, go-betweens. The other faction walks a different path, a path of folds and needles slipped through space-time itself, existential syringes yielding new spaces to be remade as the 9 desire. They have tried to gather enough dark dust in one place to form a black hole, and found it difficult. When the dark mass collapses in gravity's fist, the dust passes through itself and scatters. But difficult is not impossible, and there's far, far more dark matter in the universe than bright. They will find a new way to make new worlds of it, and end their dependence on life and on the light of guardians, which the falling veil will soon snuff out forever. In passing, Lavinia sees the entire history of the Queen's interactions with the 9. More than anyone suspected, and much more vital. She sees how one of the 9 blinded guardians to Gaul's approach, risking everything, for Gaul would have destroyed the sun and the 9 with it, just to learn how to steal the light. She sees how that one was punished. "Come," Nasia calls urgently. "Come with me. Come quick before—" Something dark and hypodermic pierces the void beneath Lavinia and slurps her down, pulls her through a proboscis so tiny that it breaks her apart into a stream of single particles, one after another. She is annihilated and reborn. Somewhere, somewhen, made of flesh again, shaking and dripping fierce sweat, mewling like a little baby. Her cheek presses against a warm wooden floor. There's a fireplace, and a fire in it, and strong wind outside that sucks at the flames. The clever-looking old lady at the desk looks up. "Ah," she says. "Lavinia, you made it." "What?" Lavinia gasps. "What?" She smiles, as if Lavinia's confusion is the sweetest greeting she's ever heard. "Don't be afraid. You've come to exactly the right place." "Where?" "Someplace where you're appreciated, where we can really use everything you've learned." The old lady pours a thin stream of tea into a cup of bone. "Didn't I tell you that you were lucky back when you were born?" And that's the end of that lore card.
Well, gibberish. Well, shit. I don't even know what to make of the end of it. Like, obviously, like the first part of this is like somebody trying to prevent her. Who is Nasia? I've heard that name before.
So Nasia is the original human name of Orin.
Oh shit!
Before
That's
she
right.
wasn't awoken.
Little Nasa. Yeah, little Nasa. That's right. Okay. So the emissary is like telling her she's not safe there, and then like the revelation here, like, where's it at? Where's that? Oh God, where's that? Come on, where's that? She sees how one of the 9 blinded the Guardians to Gaul's approach, risking everything just to learn how to steal the light. And she sees how that one was punished. I'm assuming Pluto?
Maybe that's why Pluto's not in the fold anymore.
That's why Pluto doesn't get it. He was just like, well, they have the light. Why can't we take the light? Well, what if we just let Gaul through real quick? Gaul has light suppressing technology. Let's see how he steals it. Lets him through. Guess what? Pluto, you're canceled.
That's it. No more Pluto. No more Pluto. Just doesn't exist. It's not even a dwarf. It's just a floating hunk of whatever. And Pluto's just sitting in the corner like, oh, I want to be a planet too. I think that's Pluto. So even at the gate though, like 5 of them were just screwing around, just trying to figure out how to make matter. Like, I mean, the fact that there are factions among the 9, like that's just that's such a humanoid thing. Like that's such a conscious thing. Like, do wolves in the wild form factions? Do cattle out on a cattle ranch form factions? Do ducks out in the pond form a faction? That's such a higher level of consciousness that does that. That's just Jesus. God, the 9 are mean.
Well, I mean, they have different ideas of how to go about reaching their end goal, which is just no longer be dependent on the life continuing in this solar system.
This card definitely highlights that a lot too. Like it shows that the 9 are more than just wanting to exist. They want to be free.
Yes.
Like they are so dependent on the life in this system, and at the end of the day, they don't care if it. I don't want to say they don't care if this life just blips into nothingness, but if they were free of it, now they no longer care.
Yeah.
Now they would no longer be dependent. Now who cares if the life gets snuffed out? We'll go exploring on our own. We'll leave the solar system. We'll go somewhere else. Like it. Yeah,
and
that's
I think that is the only reason why that particular member of the 9 was punished. Not because they threaten, no, not because they let Gaul through and they care about, humanity. Like, humanity is a part of the biological ecosystem that's on that planet.
right.
I think it was because of the possible repercussion of the sun blowing up. And they, they're like, no, you put all of us at risk on a gamble. We are not okay with that.
This is yeah, I can see why.
So,
but the very end of this card, what the hell do you make of this last like paragraph and a half or two? Like,
so I don't believe it is stated anywhere in particular. However, it is widely accepted by the fandom everywhere that I have looked that the witch in question is Savathun.
Like that's what I first thought of, right? Like when you hear the witch queen, the like that that is Savathun. So like, is Savathun trying to figure out the 9 as well? It's weird because it's like we're just as curious of the 9 as the 9 are of us, but I think the 9 are less curious of us, and the 9 are more just like, we want dependence. Full stop. As soon as we get dependence, we could care less what happens to you.
Independence, but yeah.
Independent, right. Yeah. Like we want independence from, we want to be dependent. Or no, independent. Yeah, you're right. Independent. I don't know why I keep saying dependence. I've got taxes going in my brain now. Thanks, Smith.
You're welcome.
So they want to be so independent and just to be themselves, to be able to just go. Whereas like we on the other end of this are just as confused as they are. Like, who are the 9? What do they want? What are they here for? We got this Zer guy just giving us freaking exotics and stuff. I mean, like giving away Galahorns like it's nothing. Like, what the hell? And nobody even knows what it is. An exotic in your heavy slot? Screw that. Oh, it's the greatest exotic in the game and does the most damage ever in the history of anything? Wow, we're dumb humans. So yeah, like that's just, but then like, what would Savathun want? A, how the hell did she get a hold of Lavinia? And B, what the hell does she want with her?
So I think you hit the nail on the head with the end goal of the 9 is independence. And the 9 even say like, they're the one faction of them doesn't think that trying to get access to the light is ultimately going to be the route to do it, because they're expecting the traveler to lose to the witness. Is essentially what they're saying.
I mean, they say as much earlier in this card. Like
they already know they're going to lose.
Yeah, so they're
like, why worry about them?
Right, so they're saying like don't put your chips on that. Like we need to find a different way. And so this other faction is literally trying to create new worlds similar to the Distributary, so that they can just move over to that new world and recreate themselves and however they want.
In there. Oh my god.
Now, independence is the key, the key word there, where you're right. We're just trying to understand them. We're just trying to be like, what is up with you guys? Why, like, should we trust you? What powers do you have? All that. Yep. But Savathun wants independence.
Oh my
She is trying to escape the system of light and dark. She is trying to get above all of it.
God.
And one of the many ways I could see her trying to research how to do that would be, what have the 9 done? What have the 9 tried? If their goal is the same as mine, can I see, ways from their techniques, their experiments?
Dude, Savathun might be the greatest entity in all of Destiny.
She has got a lot of irons and a lot of fires. Even now.
Savathun might be the greatest entity in all of Destiny. Dude, I'm broke. You broke me this time.
You're welcome.
I haven't been broke. I have not been broken in a while by you, and you have broken me this time. So yeah.
Yeah. Now, as to how she pulled Lavinia out.
Yeah. What the hell?
I can only assume that because Savathun, and Savathun was at the birth of Lavinia. She was the witch that proclaimed her Lucky Lavinia, that gave her that name. So I can only assume that Savathun has been, through whatever means, grooming Lavinia specifically to go investigate the 9 with the intention of being able to retrieve that information at some point in the future.
Savathun is the greatest entity in all of Destiny. Full stop. That's it.
Yeah, I don't know if she's got some some hive magic that allows her to literally teleport people through dimensions or what. The hive do a lot of dimension.
That's all it is with
transport.
The strand. That's all it is.
So
Jesus Christ.
Regardless, I think Savathun has had plenty of time to figure out how she's going to extract Lavinia and did so.
I think we screwed up. I think we as the Guardians screwed up by stopping Savathun. Curiosity and misinformation and misunderstandings are like the greatest downfall to that's what is like. Oh my God.
I mean, welcome to real history too. Unfortunately.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's what's like shit. Okay. Well, I think we might have one more reading or something.
We have one more that we're gonna leave.
One final little.
We're gonna close it out with. So we're gonna read. This is.
I'm curled up in the fetal position in the corner, just holding my knees, rocking slowly back and forth, just going, I don't know anymore. I don't know. This is what I get for curiosity. This is what I get.
The final card that we are going to read tonight is from the Invitation of the 9 quest again, which was visit number 5 of this quest line. And it is another conversation that we see between the emissary and the 9. It's a short one. And the emissary, when they refer to, depending on the gender of your guardian, they refer to he or she in this dialogue. But the conversation goes like this. The 9 state. What does it want? The emissary. Power. The 9. Like you? The emissary. No one is like him. The 9. We don't understand. The emissary. He has agency like you wouldn't believe. He can leave this place. The 9. This plane? We can leave this plane. The emissary. Think bigger. He can leave this game. The 9. We don't understand. The emissary. then I'm afraid it's impossible to explain. And the emissary disappears. And that's the end of that conversation.
Fuck me. This fourth wall breaking sons of Jesus.
Well, yes and no. Absolutely could be seen as fourth wall break. The game.
I'm taking it as fourth wall.
The game
like,
could
literally
be
like
destiny. Like it could be like we, the player, have the agency to leave.
Have the agency to just walk away.
Right. We can leave the world of the game.
Jesus Christ.
If we want to leave this as, if we want to assume there isn't any fourth wall breaking, and this is all happening within universe, then the game being referred to here, I think, is the game of Light and Dark.
Oh shit! Yeah, the whole garden game.
Yeah, like our guardian, by guardians in general, by nature of being one of, if not the only thing in the universe that can channel both light and dark, means that we have greater power and agency than anything else in existence.
Either one side. Oh my god. Why have you destroyed my brain tonight?
The emissary recognizes it.
Well, the emissary just represents like if you don't understand that, then it sucks to suck. Like
essentially, yeah.
But I can't I can't help you any further. And or will I? All right.
And that is where we're going to end our Studies of the Nine series.
Yeah, that's the 9.
That's the 9.
I asked for this too, and
you only did this to yourself.
Literally, see, sometimes curiosity is a bad thing, and it will get you killed.
But no, I'm glad you asked for it. The 9 is a really cool subject.
It's such a
it is a very big subject. Like
it is,
but
it really is. There's a lot more to it than just they are here, we are there. This is life. There's so much more intricacies to it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I don't even know what this next step is. You've already broken me so much. Shout outs. What shout outs do we have?
We have a shout out from Apple Podcasts this time around. We have a listener that was kind enough to leave us a 5-star review there. And their review is titled "The Click and Clack of D2 Lore" from Ike the Vike.
Yeah, Vikings! Vikings rule! I love Vikings. Okay.
So he, or they, I'm unsure, says, 2 peas in a podcast. I started with the most recent delve into the 9 lore as a way to pass time at work. You and everyone else, apparently.
Oh, you fool. You fool. What have you done?
But your interactions with each other and the lore is genuinely an unexpected treat. I look forward to the future and past episodes. And then I think they added this later. It's I am the end of this review, which I absolutely love.
I fucking love it, dude. That is, woo! That's a badass. That's you have all of my love today, Mr. or Mrs. Ike the Vike. You win. You've won the internet. That's so good. That's so good.
So that's the only text shout out we have today. People have been really awesome, though. We've gotten a whole bunch more ratings on Spotify. We're sitting at a 4.9 with I think 81 or 82 reviews. Yay. Last I looked. So thank you all for that. Yeah, if you
super kind people,
absolutely. If you like what you heard, the best way to support us is to leave a review, even if it's a number of stars, or if you're so inclined to leave a text review on whatever platform you listen to us on. That would be awesome. Rate us what you think we're worth. If you want to reach out, we do have a Twitter, which is @mythsandstories, spelt the same way as the title of the show. We review that periodically, and we'll do shout outs from there too. So yeah, say thank you again for everyone that has been doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Well, you know who's getting my thanks tonight?
Yes.
I'll let you guess. I'll let you
I mean,
guess.
I would have to assume Lavinia.
No, Savathun!
Oh, wow.
Greatest entity in all of Destiny.
You're right. We don't care about the girl that, destroyed her life and possibly her sanity because maybe Savathun manipulated her since birth.
Nope, Savathun. Savathun, greatest entity in all of Destiny. Thanks, Savathun, for keeping us on our toes and still confusing the piss out of us. Oh, and thank you to the one guy that threw in A113. Good on you, buddy.
Yeah.
I know he did it because of that. That's what I'm choosing to believe, and until proven otherwise, that is law. Queen's law.
All right.
All right. Well, you got anything else, Smith?
Now that's it for tonight.
All righty. Well, then, from all of us lore nerds to all of you guardians out there, I. We'll see you next time.